Thanksgiving week. I would like to thank the congregation for the prayers for my grandfather and my family during this recent illness, and thank you for the prayers this past week after Grandpa passed away, and also for the beautiful flowers that you all have given to our family for the funeral. Truly appreciate that and very thankful for it. This morning we're going to conclude our lesson series that we have been looking at over the past 4 weeks. We've been talking about why it is that we sing to God while we are together, when we worship with one another. And singing is a very important part of our lives, and it's a very important part of the life of the church, especially as we come together, because it is something that God has expressed that He wants us to be doing. And we read in Ephesians chapter 5, verse 19, as well as Colossians chapter 3, as to why it is that we sing. I remember several years ago when Hope was in, I believe it was Hope, it might have been my brother and I think they went to the same college. I think it was Hope, was in college at their WVUP until they moved down here. And they had said, one of her music teachers was impressed with the Churches of Christ because we got everybody to sing. And it's not something that you see very often, is just everybody singing. Singing is usually a private thing that people do. They might be a little bit shy because they don't think they can sing well enough in public, so they may not want to sing out loud. But among our brotherhood, we typically will have a large portion, if not the majority, hopefully, singing out to God, despite whether we think that we sing well or not, because we know God is not interested in the way our voices sound as much as He is interested in the way our hearts cry out and praise our Lord. We've looked over the last few weeks. We sing because we are happy or blessed. We sing because we're free. We talked about how we've been given freedom in Christ. We talked about last week, we sing because we're thankful. And today we're going to conclude that we sing because we love. If you go turn with me to Ephesians chapter 5, in verse 19, we're going to read a couple of those verses to keep things in the context of what is being said there. Ephesians chapter 5, we're going to start in the 19th verse, maybe skip up to the 18th verse every once in a while. Notice here what it is that Paul says. Actually, let's go ahead and start in the 15th verse, and then we'll read down to the 21st, actually. He says, "Look carefully then how you walk, not as unwise, but as wise, making the best use of the time, because the days are evil. Therefore, do not be foolish, but understand what the will of the Lord is, and do not get drunk with wine, for that is debauchery, but be filled with the Spirit, addressing one another in psalms and hymns and spiritual songs, singing and making melody to the Lord with all your heart, giving thanks always and for everything to God the Father in the name of our Lord Jesus Christ, submitting to one another out of reverence for Christ." Let's turn over to Colossians chapter 3 before we begin discussing these things. Colossians chapter 3, and this time we'll start, I believe it is, in the 12th verse. A little bit different context, but same message. It says, "Put on then as God's chosen ones, holy and beloved, compassion, kindness, humility, meekness, and patience, bearing with one another, and if one has a complaint against another, forgiving each other. As the Lord has forgiven you, so you must also forgive. And above all these, put on love, which binds everything together in perfect harmony. And let the peace of Christ rule in your hearts, for which indeed you were called in one body, and be thankful. And let the word of Christ dwell in you richly, teaching and admonishing one another in all wisdom, singing psalms and hymns and spiritual songs with thankfulness in your hearts to God. And whatever you do in word or deed, do everything in the name of the Lord Jesus, giving thanks to the Father through Him." And several things that we see in both of those passages, talking about singing, teaching one another, admonishing one another. It also talks a great deal about giving thanks, which we spoke about last week. When we come together and we sing, we are offering God the fruit of our lips. And we sing because we love God. How does this work? Well, as we just saw, we are commanded. If you were to read it, Greek is a little bit different in its structure than what English is. It has different things that help us to understand different nuances, but we don't need the Greek to understand what it is that God wants. We see that this is something, a commandment that God wants us to continue to do as His children, as His people. And so Jesus, if you remember, tells us in a couple of different places in the book of John, chapter 14, verse 8, He says that you are my friends if you keep my commandments. So we want to keep God's commandments that Christ has given to us with the Holy Spirit now through His apostles. And one of those things that He tells us to do is to sing. It's not a suggestion. It's not if you feel like it. That's a go ahead and sing. That's the command. It doesn't matter if we sound like songbirds, if we sound like a cat that's taking its claws and scratching its hot wood. What matters is if our heart is in the right place. And if we're singing out to God, so it doesn't matter what we sound like. We want to make sure that our hearts are right with God. We can sing beautifully. But if our heart's not right with God, it doesn't sound beautiful. But to the human ear, we might not sound good. To our own ears, I can't really stand the way I sing, and when I put my lessons up on Facebook and I hear myself for 2 or 3 minutes, I think, well, that's enough of that. I can't believe you all listen to me as much as you have. We don't like sometimes the sound of our voice, and so we might not want to sing. But even if it doesn't sound well to us, it doesn't sound well to our neighbor. If our heart is right with God, and to Him it is a beautiful sound. Fruit of our lips, fruit of praise. Jesus, through the Holy Spirit, commands that we do it together. It says, "You're my friends if you keep my commandments." In John 15, verse 14, "and you love me if you keep my commandments." In so doing, when we sing to God, we are making melody in our hearts to Him. Melody is something that we want, and this brings together the idea of unity. We're going to talk about here in a few moments as God's people. We come together in harmony, singing in harmony, and we're making melody in our hearts unto the Lord. In so doing, we give God our praise through our song. As Paul says there in Ephesians chapter 5 and verse 20, we are giving thanks unto Him. Now, this past week we had Thanksgiving. And I read someone last week, an article that I had read. Why is it that God wants us to give Him thanks? And some people are very critical of God. God's big enough that He can handle it, though I myself would not want to be critical of God. I'd like to know why it is that He says the things that He says, and commands us to do the things that He commands us to do. Some people think that God is just such an arrogant person that He needs us to thank Him and remind Him of the great things that He's done. That's not it at all. God doesn't need our thanks any more than God needs us. God loves us deeply. He loves us. But He doesn't need us to exist. He doesn't need us to do any of the things that He does. God's will exists apart from our own and apart from the things that we choose to do or not to do. He certainly doesn't need our thanks. He's going to do His will, and He's going to be kind and gracious because that's who He is. We can't bribe God with a thanksgiving. Sometimes people try to do that. They think, well, if I give God thanks and praise all the time, He'll give me what I want. That's a terrible way of looking at God. There's a lot of different ways that people approach God, and that is one, and that is a bad way to approach God. When we approach God in such a way, we're looking at God like our vending machine. I'll put in a little praise, He'll give me something in return that I want. God doesn't work that way. Other ways that people view God is like He's a genie. Remember genie from the old tales, Alibaba and all of those things. The genie, depending on what legend or story or myth you're reading from, will give you 1, 2, 3 wishes. Probably not too many more than 3. a God like that we can just go up in our prayer, make wishes to Him, and He'll give us our wishes like He's some sort of servant spirit that came out of the bottom. That's not the right way to approach God either. Other people view God as a teddy bear, or just get up there and cuddle with Him. God is compassionate and kind, but He's not a teddy bear. There are many ways to approach God. We give God our thanks not because He needs it. We sing to God not because He needs a concert. We sing to God because we need it. We give thanks to God because we need to do that. We need to give God thanks because it helps us to remember who we are. It helps us to remember where we came from. And it helps us to remember to whom we belong, from where all blessings flow. If we don't give thanks to God, then if we're not careful, we'll begin thinking that all of the blessings that we have in this life don't come from the Father, as James says, but rather they come from our own hands. And then we become hardened. And we become arrogant. And we have no humility. And we cannot be having a good relationship with God in a situation like that. And so we give thanks to God when we sing. We love Him. We give thanks to God because He has done so much for us and continues to do so. We make our melody and our hearts to God because what else is there to sing about? Well, there's lots of songs out there, and we all know different songs. There are a lot of songs about God. A lot of songs about Jesus and the love that they have and our reward in heaven someday. This book is filled up with hundreds of songs. There are actually song books that are thicker than this one. All about God, all about Jesus, all about spiritual blessings. But then there are also songs that aren't. And that's okay. There are some songs that are okay to sing that aren't about God. There's a lot of things to sing about. Then there's some things that we sing about that probably shouldn't be sung about, at least not by someone who is in step with God. When we get to the point that we love God so much, we just begin to want to sing. We are making melody in our hearts unto the Lord. We also sing not just because we love God, but because we love God's people. Many times when we think about our songs service, when we sing to God, we usually just think about the praise that we give. But there's a horizontal aspect to singing Christian songs as well. Singing our hymns, songs, and spiritual songs, as Paul says in Ephesians 5 and Colossians 3. We have the vertical from our hearts to God, and then we have the horizontal from one to another. Now, we're not praising one another. Nothing like that. But did you notice, did you catch what Paul said in Ephesians 5:19? And he also mentions it in Colossians chapter 3. He says there to address one another. So we're speaking, we're teaching one another. When you listen to the music, music has a great way of teaching us things that we are not perhaps able to grasp as quickly if it weren't for the song. Every once in a while, when you're spelling something and you might need to think about your alphabet. There have been times, even now, I'm in my 40s, that I still sing the old alphabet song that my mother taught me before I started the school. I'm trying to do something in alphabetical order, looking at a dictionary, at a library, or something, you can Google it, so you don't really need to have the card catalog. But there are times that we still use the alphabet. You know how, even now, when I want to try to find a New Testament book and it's eluding me, you know what I do? I start singing Matthew, Mark, Luke, John. That way I can figure it out. It teaches us. Music teaches us. When you're listening to a song on the radio, there are things that I remember listening to, even when I was back in high school. I may not have heard the song, but I still know every single word. I haven't heard the song since, but I know every single word. And every once in a while, I might catch myself singing because music sticks with us. And so when we address one another, we are teaching one another truths that are found in the Bible. That's why it's so important to make sure that we are singing true songs. And we're not singing things in the scripture and a biblical sense that are unbiblical. We want to make sure that they are biblical and true, that we were teaching and addressing one another in those songs, hymns, and spiritual songs, as he says there in Ephesians chapter 5:19 and Colossians chapter 3 and verse 16. Also, not only are we teaching each other while we address one another in these spiritual songs, but we're also admonishing one another. Now, the word admonish is kind of a harsh word. We don't use it very often in our day-to-day language. Most of us don't. In fact, this is probably the first time I've spoken out loud this week. But to admonish means to warn. To warn of something that we need to make sure that we are doing so that we can avoid what is to come. Now, not all of our songs do that. But all of our songs do teach us to make sure that we are right with God. And then when we think about why do we need to do that, then we remember. We also do have songs that do come and admonish us. You need to get ready. When we sing the song, Are You Ready for the Judgment Day? We are admonishing one another when we sing that song. We admonish one another when we think about, we joke about it because in our hymn books, it's page 666. So we joke about, a lot of people talk about the mark of the beast and misunderstanding about that. And so anytime we say 666, a lot of us kind of giggle about that. But the last song in our song book, I believe, or close to it, 666, is Jesus is Coming Soon. This is the song that we sing to warn one another, to admonish one another. Get ready, because Jesus is coming. We want to make sure that we're right with Him. So when we are singing together, as we are commanded to do, and we do so because we love God, because we keep God's commandments if we love Him. We want to be His friends. We are His friends, as Jesus says, if we do what He says. We love each other because we want to make sure that each one of us comes to know Jesus more and more. And when we sing with one another, that's one way that we're doing it. When we sing with one another, we're admonishing each other. Make sure that you're ready, because there is coming a day in which the dead in Christ will rise first after the trumpet of God shall sound. There's coming a day when all people will be judged, and we will either be judged according to whether or not we were obedient to Christ, or whether or not we were not obedient to Christ. And if we were not obedient to Christ, then we are not ready for Jesus to come. We cannot say to that song, Are you ready for the judgment? We can't say yes. We can only say, no, I wasn't ready. And so we admonish, and we teach, and we address one another in songs, hymns, and spiritual songs. When we sing with one another, in so doing, not only are we teaching and admonishing, but we are submitting to one another, as Paul says in Ephesians chapter 5 and verse 21. We submit to one another. That's another word. We use that word more often, but it's usually done so in a negative context. To submit is not a bad thing. Oh, it can be. A lot of things in our world can be bad, but they're meant for good. But normally we think about submission, we think about somebody submitting to an employer. Further back, maybe submitting to a slave, submitting to a master. Oftentimes men hopefully are joking around about this, so I have known some who don't. Say to their wives, you just need to submit to me. And the Bible says, wives, submit to your husbands. There in Ephesians. But you know what it also says in that passage? To husbands and wives. Submit to one another. It's not a, I'm the king. It's a, I love you, so I'm going to submit to your will. Both sides. We come up underneath each other. We serve from the ground up. That's the way the church is. That's the way elders are. They don't rule over the church. They're not the kings or the bosses. They're the servants, deacons, same way. Not just elders, the deacons, all of us. See, the history books, they like to talk about the people who rule from above. And history books like to give them credit for things that have happened on the earth. We call Solomon's temple Solomon's temple. But did Solomon build that temple? No. Did he plan for the temple? He didn't plan for the temple. That was David. David built or made the blueprints. Solomon footed the bill from a lot of riches that he gathered from what God had blessed him with. Solomon wasn't out there swinging hammers. He had servants that did that. You see, it's the people that submit are the ones that make history go. But we're told, don't submit in a way that you're supposed to feel negative towards those you submit to. Rather, you're submitting to them in kindness and love. It reminds me of the servant girl in the story back in the Kings. You had the Assyrian, or not the Assyrian, but the Syrian commander who had gotten leprosy. He had a servant girl from Israel. And she told him about a prophet back in Israel that could help him out. She, as submitting to him, changed his life. When we submit to one another, when we serve one another, whether it be in action or in word, or whether it be in song, we are being there for each other, moving each other along towards God. God doesn't want us to rule from above, but rather we are in an upside-down kingdom. So we change things from the ground up. That's how God gets things done. He chooses to get those things done through His people, the church. When we sing together, we come together as one people. We all love the United States of America. We don't look too united anymore. The church needs to be united in unity. It's one people serving and praising our one God. And so when we come together, that's exactly what we're doing. We're showing to the world that we have one voice. And we are praising our one God through that one voice, through our praise today. Let's always sing out to God. Let's sing out to Him because we are a blessed people. Let's sing out to Him because we are a free people. Let's sing out to Him because we are a thankful people. Let's sing out to Him because we love God and we love His people. This morning, if you need to respond to the Lord's invitation, we encourage you to do so. He has sent out the invitation, and it's still valid. As we said earlier, and as we sometimes sing in our song, there is coming a day that invitation will be time to cash it in. Are you ready for the judgment day? Jesus is coming soon. I don't know when. But He will be here. Every other promise that God has kept in the Bible, made in the Bible, He has kept. It's a pretty good track record. He hasn't sent Jesus back yet because He is loving, He is patient, He is kind. Not willing that anyone should perish, but that all should reach repentance. That's what Peter tells us by inspiration of the Holy Spirit. There is coming a time when that patience, that long suffering will come to an end. Get ready for the judgment day. I'm going to sing a song encouraging you to come forward now. If you need to be baptized for the remission of sins, we encourage you to do so. If you need to ask for prayers at the church, you are a Christian, decided, or maybe just a string of events that you chose and start to slide backwards towards the world. We encourage you to ask for prayers at the church this morning. Get right with God. Something that we all need to strive